So you know what's really hard is being the last guy on the last panel of the day, especially after following these guys. But thanks to Darrell and to Danya for organizing the panel and for you all for sticking it out. It's probably just because you actually want to hear what Kent has to say, because he's always better than us anyway. What I want to do is talk a little bit about Trellis now, where it comes from, why AAAS is doing this, what it is, how it's being used. And I want to talk a little bit also about community engagement and our thoughts about that from the association side. And I hope by the time I'm done and having listened to these folks that you leave here with two things. The first is, come see me if you're interested in using Trellis. But second is, no matter who you choose to work with or if you try to use your own, you really do need to think about community engagement and community management. Now, I want to talk a little bit about our theories of that as well. So what is Trellis? It's a professional networking platform, but it's primarily a collaboration platform. And our goal is to make it easy for anyone in the STEM community to create a group of any size, any affiliation, any disciplinary composition or geographic composition for the purpose of collaboration. We're in a private beta right now, which really just means we're focusing on working with groups. We're not letting individuals into the platform yet. We've got about 7,000 users in about 450 different groups. This summer, we're actually bringing on all of the AAAS members. So we'll be adding 100,000 users to the platform this summer because, quite honestly, you know, as Susan was saying with ASPD earlier, we haven't had anything like this. We have 100,000 members with no way to interact. We have 24 sections. We have 3 divisions. We don't have a member directory. It's one of the things that is, as some of my colleagues know, is one of the great things working at AAAS right now is you can come up with great ideas, and we've missed a lot of the mistakes other people have made in the last 10 years. So we get to build new things and see how it works. Just to give you a sense of the kinds of things that we have on Trellis, it really is built around the core of the group. They're professional profiles, but it's really built around groups, public and private groups, groups that are open or closed. Every group has its own news feeds and shared events calendars, discussions, document management, collaborative authoring tools, notification tools. So we've put all this together, but it really came out of some research that we were doing a couple of years ago. We were trying to understand better what tools people in the community were using already. And that started from a couple points. Shortly after I started at AAAS, we were in a board meeting, and the guy who was the chairman of our board at the time was talking, I think metaphysically, about AAAS as a large platform to enable small self-forming groups. The other thing that happened that week is it happened to be the week that Elsevier bought Mendeley. And there was a lot of discussion, obviously, in the community about that. There's a lot of writing, including at SSP, where people were saying, you know what, maybe it's time that associations start putting some of their reserves where their long-term interests lie. It's probably about the time IDEO was working with ASPB as well. So we did research, and we asked people what tools were they using for online networking and what tools were they using for online collaboration. And what we heard back is in terms of online networking, it's no longer sufficient for us to network exclusively within our discipline. We also have to be able to network on a multidisciplinary basis. And when we asked them what collaboration tools they were using, we were hearing a lot of frustration. I'm increasingly involved in these types of collaborations that leave my institution, that cross my discipline. But every time we do that, we lose any sort of IT support. And somebody goes out and gets Google Docs, or they get Dropbox, or they get SharePoint. And you know what? That's okay, except for the fact that I'm actually doing 3 of these things, so that if Susan got Dropbox and Karen got SharePoint, I got to use all of those tools. So our goal with Trellis was to create this one place where everyone could come and just set up a group, and they could just start working. And we would have the basic level of collaboration tools, and then as Karen said and as Susan said, we'll have tools for other people to bring in additional solutions as well. We neither can nor should do it all, but we want people to be able to aggregate all of their communities in one place over time. And that in part came out also of some of the conversations we had with other associations. Where we heard was a range of experiences from, as AAAS, we haven't really done anything, but we'd really like to do more to enable engagement with and among our members. Or we've tried a bunch of times. We've tried on Facebook, and we've tried on LinkedIn, and we've tried here, but we can never quite get to critical mass. To, you know what, we're doing okay, but we keep hearing from our members that they also want to be able to communicate with other people. So part of the belief with Trellis is that by bringing not only the AAAS members on, but also making it available to other associations will actually all see higher levels of engagement that we wouldn't see if we kept building independent communities. Types of groups that are using Trellis already, we're seeing academic collaborations, communities of practice, international collaborations, policy groups. There are several other associations already piloting alongside us. Just to think about the ways that AAAS is using it. We're already using it for engagement for our programs, with our members, with our employees. We have a 300-person employee group on Trellis that we're using for internal communications purposes. Advocacy, both for for coalition management, as well as for a source of advocates. We started to play around with it a little bit on the publishing side as well. We're using it both with Science Advances and Science Robotics as a coordination tool for our board of reviewing editors. And we've also started actually a journal club. The folks who do the books reviews for science have started a journal club. And then finally, for us, it's a platform for experimentation. The one thing we know is that scientific communication is changing. We don't know how, we don't know where. And for us, with the brand science, we have very little flexibility to experiment. Trellis lets us do some more things. A couple of case studies. As I mentioned, the editorial boards for robotics and advances. Engaging a fellows network. So many of you may be aware of our science and technology policy fellows. There have been 3,000 of them over the last 40 years. They were scattered around on Yahoo groups and Google groups. So this was an opportunity to bring them together. And we've talked to several other organizations and funders who want to bring their fellows together in networks on Trellis. Community of practice, there's one now on public engagement with science. It started with 30 people in a room at the AAAS annual meeting in Chicago 3 years ago. There's now 650 people in the group. They do 1 or 2 live chats a week. They've got about 120 active discussions on the platform. Just to give you a sense, we've talked about community engagement. There are 2 people who actively manage this group. Between them, they spend about 5 to 7 hours a week. And that's setting up and managing the live chats, et cetera. But people often ask, what's the level of engagement? That's it. But this is a group that grows by 20 or 30 people a week, and to Karen's point, has a very high level of engaged users. Expanding content engagement, this is what the science folks are doing with the book review. They pick 1 book a month. Everybody votes on the book, they read the book, then they have both a series of asynchronous discussions about the book, but they also have a live chat where the author comes on and does a live chat on Trellis. And then finally, a global scientific network. There are actually a couple of these working. The International Neuroinformatics Coordinating Facility is based out of Stockholm. They have hundreds of users, both in a series of knowledge networks. They're also using this to support a program they're doing with Google Summer of Code. So that's just a sample, an example of some of the things people are doing on Trellis. But I did just want to spend 1 more minute about community engagement, because in the end, really, you all could work with any of us. You could work with other providers out there. But if you're not dedicated to having someone manage your community, you will be very disappointed in your returns. And it's something we're taking very, very seriously. The part of our team that is growing is the community engagement team, not because we're actively managing communities, but because we're actively working with our communities to help them manage themselves. We actually got a large grant this year from the Sloan Foundation to develop a community engagement fellows program. I guess one question I'd have for all of you is in your associations or your organizations, how many of you have today someone who at least a significant part of their role is as a social media manager? Okay? How many of you have someone who part or all of their role is a community manager? A lot fewer. So our perspective on this, having looked at it a lot, is this is what social media management was about 6 or 7 years ago, when we all looked around and said, what's a social media manager? Where do these people come from? Why would they want to do this? There's no career path here. And by the way, they're going to sit by themselves in a room and feel really, really lonely. So our goal with this Community Engagement Fellows program that Sloan has funded is a couple things. First and foremost, it's actually to professionalize and institutionalize the role with you. Our goal is to work with both associations and large-scale scientific collaborations to help institutionalize the role of the community engagement manager, but it's also to help train those people, because you're not going to be able to do it on your own. We just hired 2 new community engagement managers, and let me tell you, neither of them know what a community engagement manager is. But we do, and we're going to help bring them up to speed, and I know that Susan's worked with some of the best that are out there. And it's really important. And so that's one other thing I would just like to leave with you is whatever tool you choose to use, it's not the tools alone. You have to believe that part of the commitment is having someone who's actually minding your community. If you can, I promise you, as Karen says, we will start to prove the ROI out to you over time. But if you don't, I can also promise you, you will be disappointed.